Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is September 8th, 2025, but this video is going to be aired tomorrow, September 9th, Tuesday, 2025. And so let's get started. It's an article I want to read to you, and some thoughts on it. American Dream, just a tool of manipulation, a Chinese think tank says. The U.S. is peddling lies to the world about the benefits of its system, a damning report has claimed. The U.S. spreads propaganda such as the myth of the American Dream as part of a global ideological warfare campaign, a Chinese think tank has claimed in a report released on Sunday. The criticism comes amid heightened tensions between the U.S. and China, with both nations frequently exchanging accusations over political systems, global influence, and ideological agendas. The Zhihua Institute said Washington is promoting a flawed system abroad that fails to deliver results at home. The document focused on what it described as colonization of the mind by American soft power. The American dream, the belief that hard work and talent can guarantee a good life regardless of social class or origin, is one of the illusions the U.S. sells, the report said. In this money-centric society, success stories of personal ascent and material abundance are but infinitely exaggerated versions of survivorship bias, meaning attention is given only to the few successes while the many failures are ignored. The American dream is a sugar-coated cognitive manipulation tool, a glossy packaging for exporting American values, it stated. I can't disagree with this. I'm not saying the Chinese have a perfect social system and, financially or societally. I'm just saying that sounds pretty much the way it is here, especially in the past several decades. The think tank argued that ideals of freedom and equality have been eroded by capitalist privilege in the U.S., while the American political system functions as a democracy of money, capital, and the privileged few. I agree. It also said free speech has been undermined by partisan rivalry and corporate interests. The report framed U.S. soft power strategy as a way to reinforce global dominance. It claimed Washington mixes concepts broadly recognized as desirable, such as democracy, equality, and human rights, with individualism, egoism, materialism, and hedonism, and presents the result as universal values. The report urged nations to recognize the risks of adopting the American worldview and instead pursue independence of the mind to ensure stability and development in an emerging multipolar world, or multipolar order. Now, some of you might find that, that's just the Chinese and they're communists and their system is crappy. So what do they know about America? Well. No matter what we think of China's system is irrelevant to me. It's what they gathered by how they saw America is quite true. And I'm going to show you a post from Marjorie Taylor Greene. She posted this 16 hours ago. She said, "We can't fix the rest of the world, but we can fix our own country, the United States of America. This week, Congress will pass the National Defense Authorization Act, which funds our military, the Department of War. I fully support our great U.S. military, but I do not support funding foreign countries in our own NDAA. We are in over $37 trillion in debt, and the annual interest on our national debt is now over $1 trillion, which is more than our own annual military spending. My kids' generation can't afford life, and the high cost of living should be our focus. We must stop paying foreign countries with foreign aid and foreign Military funding. We are broken, and many Americans are being buried by the last 5 years of rapid inflation. Actually, it's been going on way longer than that, but I appreciate she's even bringing this up. Republicans need to stop being tone deaf to the real financial woes of Americans. When most Americans are screaming about the cost of insurance, health care, groceries, bills, and housing, but Congress refuses to listen and continues to vote to send Americans' hard-earned tax dollars to foreign countries and foreign wars, there will eventually be a reckoning. So, let me go back to what I found very important. My kids' generation can't afford life, and the high cost of living should be our focus. They can't afford life. Yes, a lot of kids, because I have children, adult kids that are really struggling in this economy. Again, they don't feel like they have anything. A lot of them, it's hard to find purpose for many who aren't even, kids that aren't even Christian or don't have some kind of faith. They have a hard time finding the purpose in life. They don't have the money to go to college. If they do go to college, then they're in debt for the next 30, 40 years. And their jobs don't pay enough. We don't have any living wage, a living wage for people. And the young adults can't afford to buy a house. So therefore they're having a hard time getting married and having children, because it unfortunately there's a cost factor there. They can barely make their rent. Wages have not kept up with the cost of living the past 40 years. It started in around 1976 or so, somewhere around there. Things started to go down as far as people's wages and cost of living. So back then, the early 70s, especially in the 60s and some in the 50s, people had one household, they were in a family, had one wage earner, one income, and they had a car and they had a house. What changed? Well, the way from what I've researched is something happened with the change in women coming into the workplace was needed to come forth. Now, I've heard reports on this ages ago that was a CIA plot or something. I don't know if this is true. That they just wanted more taxpayers, so women came to work, and that was another taxpayer. I don't know. You can believe that or not. Just something I remember. And let's not forget that our jobs started to go overseas in the late 70s. The manufacturing jobs, people were losing their jobs through that. And then later in the 90s with the NAFTA, there's Glass-Steagall issue in the 90s as well. Things started to really change at the end of the 1990s in that aspect. And so people never really have kept up with the wages have never kept up, but those CEOs and the top of the corporate, the CEOs of corporations are making, like, I forget, an ungodly amount more than the average employee. And so what they're saying there is true. It's the very few. The American dream is no longer attainable for the average American. Sure, the rich people, they're doing fine. But the ability to get ahead is, I do think, an illusion in these days. It's just the way I see it. I just don't think it's happening. I think it's much more difficult than when it was when my parents were in their 20s through their 40s. So, I agree with what was said there. Own experiences. I'll give you another example. Like when my dad was in the military, he was a judge and he was a lawyer and he was a colonel. And still, even in the military pay was not equal to what civilians at that same type of level were making. So it was a little bit less for the military because they had those benefits of housing and all that. So in any case, when my dad retired from the military in 1990, he received 70% of his retirement pay from being in the military for 30 years. My ex-husband, who retired after 21 years in, it was around 2010, I believe, he only got 50%. Now, he was a non-commissioned officer, so he was not an officer, but he was a master sergeant, and he only got 50% of his retirement. And they just keep scaling it down. And then pensions are not the same anymore. In the civilian workforce, pensions were more guaranteed during these years before this change, so that people could work at the same company, as I said, for 20 plus years and retire and have a pension. And that's just rare these days. College costs were not an arm and a leg like they are now. Everything just went up. And healthcare is outrageous. So that's how I see it. I think there's a lot of truth to that article. Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, her kids can't afford life. And yeah, it's part of living. And if you can't do anything, you can't make any ends meet, no matter what you try to do, that is very discouraging for a whole generation of people that were told this. Oh, it's just work hard and you'll get far. And in reality, that is not the case. It is not an accurate statement. So, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel. Share your thoughts if you'd like. I know people are just going to disagree with me. That's fine. That's just the way I see it. I hope you're having a wonderful day, evening, morning. Until next time.